You probably heard many times that the computer noises you make should have more movement and expression in order to sound good. Then you stumbled upon different modulators, step sequencers and fancy LFOs. But the question is, do they really make your music sound great? Truth is that those three devices I'm about to show you are more than enough to feel like a cool kid, yet to not get a headache of too many moving lines. Good news for all my fellow commenters here. Modulators are now available in live standard. But who would have thought that the most powerful of them all is also available in intro? So I basically like to use the key track feature a lot, and it basically follows the pitch of the key you play. Let me maybe assign it to the filter cutoff of this preset I made. Okay, so I will switch to remote so you can actually see the filter cutoff knob move, but keep in mind that with mod, you can still modulate the parameter, yet control this knob as well. So you basically don't lose modulation path in that way. By default it works like that, but obviously you can change this curve and actually control the amount of modulation and the start and end positions of it. So you can basically shape it however you want. Once I change the curve, this lower note I played before is actually higher in this shape. That means the filter is more open, but if I will just turn it to the default settings, like that. And the cool thing is that you can use those 5 taps for different modulation sources, or basically go ham on one and modulate different parameters. Yes, I focus on basses a lot, and in case you're watching this on your phone and you can't hear poo-poo while taking a poo-poo, then let me just try to do something with arps here. Let's modulate a delay time with it. So map, I have my delay time set to 3. So that already gives me a cool little lo-fi effect, I guess, but just a side tip here, don't sleep on delay modes. First mode basically does what it says, repitch. Fade is actually the smoothest one, and I really like the sound it provided with this key track modulation for the time. So jump can be a little bit glitchy, but I consider it as a cool thing, especially if you go for some granular-ish vibes here. So let me just put it up. Yeah, it's not synchronized, but it sounds cool. Let me just go back to the fade. And maybe try ping pong. Let's try different source, and I think random will work great here. Another cool option to try is increment, and it basically works like a pseudo step sequencer. You can determine how many steps you want, and obviously change the curve here as well. But if you really don't want to spend a dime on Live Suite to get the new sequencer pack, I actually have another better modulator on my list that can work like a sequencer. It can get a little bit complex, so first, let me show you. Yes, basic envelope modulator. It happens to be way more useful than you think, and in fact, it helped me a lot while making this preset for Meld. So I basically ran out of modulation sources and filters inside the synth, but I really wanted to get that sweet auto filter rise at the beginning. So what I did is I actually added this envelope shaper, the envelope MIDI one, and assigned it to basic auto filter and its frequency parameter. So now whenever I control the attack, which I named filter rise in this case, it basically moves the filter knob. And since I'm in modulation mode, I can actually control the frequency of the cutoff and then completely change the sound I have here. But that was just to match the idea for this particular sound. You can use it to control other effects on your MIDI tracks. So we can, for example, use spectral resonator here. Let's quickly change mode to MIDI and grab MIDI from this 5 MIDI track I have here. Now let's switch it to granular, cause who doesn't love granular? Bring it an octave up. And now with this envelope MIDI, we can actually control the dry wet parameter, the pitch modulation as well, maybe, and let's modulate decay time. That being said, if you work on MIDI part, it works better than the basic envelope follower. It deserves a honorable mention alongside with LFO, but those two are pretty well covered. So, to not waste your time, let's talk about the GOAT I bet you don't use as frequently as you should. You know what, as I look at it now, I think I went a little bit too far by saying it can imitate the sequencer workflow. But let me just try it. Instead of making shapes, which are obviously possible in this case, let's try to draw some steps. That is basically my step sequencer, so let's try to map it to, I guess, drive of the saturator. So let's hear how our step sequencer imitation sounds. Yeah, so it's possible. The more you f around, the more you find out. But I suggest you to get this device and support our Max for Life guru, Elephant. On the way for supporting, make sure to click the like button down below this video if you enjoyed my gibberish so far. But back to Shaper. Other controls below this little display are responsible for introducing a little bit of variation and smoothing to your sound, and that totally depends to you if you're gonna use them or not. The more important parameters are actually down here. So we already worked on the loop mode, and that basically loops this whole shape throughout the time. Now, once I switch to one shot, there is a trigger option here. So now we basically don't have any shaping, but once I press this trigger button, it basically runs through the shape in this time increment. In order to make it a little bit more audible, let's actually switch rate to something faster. You know what, at this point, as I'm changing the saturator curves, I feel like I'm making a poor version of Roar. Manual mode is pretty self-explanatory and actually pretty damn cool. So instead of triggering your shape with time or make it sync to your session, you just need to use this manual dial and basically scan through your shape. It's basically like an automation hacker, but I wouldn't use it to make automations inside the arrangement view. It works great for building racks. Now, speaking of building racks, custom effects and presets, as you may already seen throughout this video, all of the sounds from this particular project are available down in the description. I also plan to shoot myself in the foot and make a full tutorial about building racks in live. But that's for near future. For now, if this basic modulation sparked some creativity inside you, then you definitely need to check this video, where I cover both basics and more complex examples of modulation inside Ableton.